Hello. Hello. Check, check. My mic working? Yeah, okay. Sorry. That normally that doesn't look like that, but we're good. Sorry. Hello. Welcome to the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. We are your weekly look into the wide, wacky, wonderful world of mixed martial arts. My name is Robert Winfrey, and I am your host, per usual. Let's see what we got on the agenda today. Well, we are in the Big Trench. We had the White House card, Big Peak. Big old trench. And then we're going to get back up, probably higher in some respects, for International Fight Week, which is not this coming Saturday, but is the next Saturday, with the return of Conor McGregor, allegedly. He'll be taking on Max Holloway. We've got that whole card, more of that card revealed. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The UFC dropped several fight announcements, so we'll devote some time to that particular topic. And anyway, the 2 weeks between the White House card and UFC 329, they are just punting on these. We were just in the warehouse for. There's good things I'm going to say about that card. There's some bad things I'm going to say about that card, but we were in the warehouse, and this next Saturday is back in Azerbaijan because they're being paid to be there, and they don't care if anyone watches, because it's for the local government and the local people. And then like the actual apparatus will spin back up for Connor versus Max too. So we're in the doldrums, but that happens, and we will be going through that. Yeah, I'm doing okay, Tristan. Hope you're doing well too. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Lamentably, the secular world has demonized, belittled, and marginalized the role of fathers in society and individuals for almost my entire life. And yet, time and again, evidence suggests that nothing correlates better with good human outcomes than having a intact family and a strong father figure. Who'd have thought, right? So, to all the dads out there and even if you're not a biological father, if you're either a stepdad or just a very important paternal figure in someone's life, that all matters. So, keep doing what you're doing, man. We that's what's going to turn this whole thing around. If anything, like we can't have like bad people in charge. We can't have. I don't want to get into like some weirdness here, but if you're gonna turn this thing around, like all of it, I fundamentally believe it is not just good people, but you do actually. It can't. You need good men involved in this. So do good things. Anyway, as for the agenda tonight, let's see. We are going to review the Kape versus Horiguchi card, which had a lot of finishes. We will preview the Azerbaijan card, and then we will talk news. There were some viewership numbers released for the White House card. We'll talk about that. And I mentioned already, but fight announcements got made. So we will be talking a little bit about that, and then we'll just see how that goes. So that's what we've got on balance. Anything you can do, of course, to interact with the product is always appreciated. Like, comment, subscribe, turn the bell on, notification on. I don't know that it actually does anything, but do it. I don't know. You tell me if it does anything. Turn it on, see what happens. I don't know. That's what we got. All right. But with that all out of the way, let's jump into this, shall we? UFC Fight Night 279, Horiguchi Kape versus Horiguchi. How'd we do prediction wise? Considering I did almost all of those horribly sleep deprived, I changed two. I swamped the main event as we got closer to it. I was sweating that one too, by the way. Like I was sweating that swap after the first two rounds. Just I think the age. Like I rewatched their first fight, which is free on Ryzen's YouTube channel, by the way. And Horiguchi just like big brothers Kape for that whole fight, basically. But the way Kape has grown since then, I kind of just felt better about him. So that one I swapped. I swapped the first fight of the night, actually. The Collins and Tenzalova. Yeah, Tenzalovi, excuse me. For a very specific reason. Not only was it a bit of a short notice fight that came together, Tanzalovi is normally a bantamweight. That's not information readily available if you just like scan the Tapology pages because they like their Tapology, wonderful service. If I had a gripe, when you just look at a fighter's resume, they don't list the weight class the fights are taking place at. I'd like to see that added because as soon as I got through that, like, oh, he's normally a bantamweight. Collins is always a featherweight. On short notice, yeah, like the easy swap. Other than that, what did I feel good about predicting on this card? Feel good about anything? Might not have. Hang on. Let's see. No, that was a favorite. That was an easy call. Oliveira over Feely, I felt good. That one I felt pretty good about. Was there anything on the prelims? So I got that wrong. I got that wrong. No. Again, most of these were not very hard to predict. Like the big upset was Borjas, and that came largely because of a weight miss. Not entirely, but like that we can't pretend that didn't play a role. But yeah, I think if I had to say I was proud of one thing, it was swapping to Kape, which I don't give myself too much credit for those. So that ultimately on the night meant I went 9-3. So we got to do better. But year to date, that's 183, 61-3 with 2 no contests. Yeah, that's. I'm probably going to fall short of my goal, but we're going to find out as we get into the specifics of it. So we'll find out. All right, as for the fights themselves, main event, Manuel Kape defeats Kyoji Horiguchi via TKO punches, 242 of the third round. How did this one go? Real good first 2 rounds for Kyoji Horiguchi. I saw some people saying that Kape may have won the first. I disagreed with that. I thought Horiguchi looked pretty good. Kape did a lot of southpaw work. Oh, refocus. Come on, you can do it. There we go. Kape did a lot of southpaw work, and that was kind of a risky move. It was to set up stuff later, which I understand. But it cost him the first 2 rounds as Horiguchi really kind of he got him timed pretty quickly. Got him down a few times, including almost all of the second round. Like that was the weird thing. The second round, Kape goes orthodox because one of the benefits to being to being bistantial, so to speak, is exactly what led to the finish. But if your defense on all elements isn't on point when you switch, you can get punished. He switched orthodox and almost immediately got taken down because Horiguchi was ready for that. Was that in the first round, and then the second was when he slipped early. It was one of those two. Forgive me, I can't recall off the top of my head specifically. But Horiguchi spends the entire pretty much second round on top. Okay, ground and pound, nothing scintillating, but okay. And Kape not great about getting up. Like Kape will scramble pretty well, but initiating scrambles is kind of a difficulty for him. So he was down the 2 rounds, third round. He comes out. We're striking again. Then he goes orthodox, and Horiguchi isn't quite ready for it this time. They get into an exchange, and Horiguchi would have been okay against a southpaw Kape, given the position he was in. Kape's not southpaw. Kape's orthodox. Right hand counter. Hurts Horiguchi. Gets to the ride. Those vicious, like, sort of uppercut / undercuts. Yeah. Kape had to figure some stuff out after the being down a couple of rounds, but he gets a stoppage. And he should be next in line. I mean, sucks for Horiguchi. Even though I changed my pick, I was rooting for him. The UFC also just like they can't catch a break with Japan. Kape was hurt pretty badly around 2. Yeah. There were a few times when Horiguchi was able to just counter. He got the timing down. So anytime Kape would enter, Horiguchi had a counter punch or an intercepting punch ready and waiting for him. Yeah, he wobbled him a little bit in the first and then hurt him in the second with, I think it was a right hand in the second. Just kind of messing with Kape, being a little bit lazy with his lead hand. So, yeah, just again, I'm gutted for Horiguchi because I like the guy. And the UFC anytime they try to plan stuff out for Japan, things fall apart for them. They really kind of thought Taira might be the guy, but they pushed him a little bit too soon. They could have gone back with Horiguchi if he'd won here, a title fight with him, and Van would be, a big deal. He loses. I don't know why, but the UFC has never really gotten the Japanese market. They've really struggled to find Japanese talent. I mean, Horiguchi is probably the best fighter from Japan that's ever been in the UFC. And he's never been champion, Before that, it was what, Okami? I mean, they've had a few guys that have tried. You could argue Sakuraba back in the day, but it's such a different era that I don't know necessarily how I'd even count it. It's just weird that, for a place so integral to the history of MMA, the history of martial arts in general, in a lot of respects, it's just a venue, a market that the UFC has never gotten a handle on. I mean, for a while, it was just because that was where Pride operated out of, and the UFC was never going to try and make a move against Pride because Pride was big. I mean, newer people to the sport may not remember this, but there was a years stretch when Pride was the biggest MMA organization in the world. The UFC was a fairly distant second. The UFC just operated in the States and Pride didn't. And there's other reasons that Pride folded. I'm certainly not going to pretend that's a one issue thing, but the UFC is they've went back once to Japan, and that wasn't that was it one of the Henderson and Edgar fights? I want to say it was. Let me check. I can find this real fast. Okay, the last time they were in Japan was 2017 for an event headlined by Oven St. Preux and Yushin Okami. So that was September 23rd of 17. After that, we have to go back to 15 for a fight between Josh Barnett and Roy Nelson. Mark Hunt and Roy Nelson in 2014. Silva versus Stan in 2013 was good. I mean, that was a good fight. But yeah, they haven't been there in 9 years. For a while, they tried to make it, I mean, I wouldn't quite say a yearly thing, but they tried in 13, once in 14, once in 15, then not again until 17, and that was the last time. They've just never really got a hold of Japan. Which, like I said, is a little bit weird. They've tried on occasion. They'd clearly like to do something there, but doesn't quite happen. So Kape, fun fact, I think Manuel Kape now has the longest TKO/KO finish streak in UFC flyweight history. I'm sure the fact that it started as soon as the UFC gave USADA the boot is purely coincidental. Purely a coincidence, I'm sure. I mean, that said, Kape is pretty clearly the number one contender. He probably should have had the last shot at Van instead of Taira. I would have preferred that personally because I wanted Taira to have a little bit more time to develop, but that's me if I'd had my brothers. As it stands, we have to see a little bit because I don't think we have an official return table for Alexandre Pantoja yet. if Pantoja is ready to go on a reasonable timetable, Pantoja and Van does kind of have to happen. At which point you just have to ask if, well, you have to ask if Pantoja should just wait for Van versus Kape, or Kape should wait for Van versus Pantoja. Because I don't know that you've got two guys who really should be fighting for the belt. Now, on the plus side, Van is happy to stay active, it seems, at the moment. So we'll see how that goes. But Kape's next fight should be for the belt. I don't know if that means he'll fight Van next, or if he'll have to wait for Van versus Pantoja, or how exactly the permutation play out. But who else is there left for him to fight? That isn't the champion. I mean, what are we gonna do? Throw him in there with Tyra? Why? What would the purpose be of that other than to keep everyone busy? Like, Tyra just lost to Van. He gave him a good fight, but that was non-controversial. We don't need two contenders to kill each other off. Like, we may just have to wait a little bit. So the timing on that could be a little bit wonky. We'll need to see a few things, but Kape should absolutely be fighting for the belt next. Horiguchi, I don't know exactly, but I like Horiguchi, so I'll be very interested to see whatever he does. Again, whatever it happens to be. For a 3-round fight, 2.5-round fight, not a bad fight, not a bad display of skill and everything. Was a nice, relatively quick way to cap off the night too. I mean, before I get into the rest of this card, let me just say, if I have one other like genuinely positive thing to say about this card, it moved. I mean, this whole thing was done in less than 6 hours. Or right around 6. Like, I think it was less. Like, the main event got started at about 8:30 my time, which meant we'd been going for a little over 5 hours. I'm just so used to these things being 7 hours at this point that, my assumption is just, if it starts at 3, I'm going to be here till 10. And it started at 3, and like, we're wrapping up a little before 9. Like, if I'm going to say something positive, if nothing else, this card moved. Which, hey, thumbs up for that one, baby. I got the Jamal Hill tattoos here, just terrible thumbs. So that was a positive. Also, I did like Dan Hellie as the lead play-by-play guy. Wish he didn't have to try and wrangle Bisping and Cormier, but Tristan chiming in. Horiguchi versus Royval Kavanaugh winner. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of ways you could go with him. I mean, we still need to know what's up with Tyra. Royval Kavanaugh's coming up. There's plenty of fights at the top of flyweight, and flyweight, if Van is serious about just like turning and burning through contenders, we could be doing some really fun stuff in the flyweight division over the next 18 months, which will be my hope, but I don't know how genuinely optimistic I am for it, but that's the hope. All right, moving on to less interesting stuff. Co-main event, Navajo Sterling, TKO Z1 Cutelaba, 323 of the second round. Interesting kind of first round. Cutelaba did put Sterling through a few paces. Came out, pressed him a little bit, had a really nice front headlock series. Sterling was prepared. I'll give him that. I think Cutelaba got the first round, but Sterling was starting to roll a little bit. And then in the second round, anytime Cutelaba was trying to get close, Sterling was better about angling. His left to the body was working real good. Cutelaba's defense on the feet still leaves a lot to be desired. Like, his hand position is generally okay, but once he commits, he doesn't move his head. He's got a little bit of the old Rashad Evans thing. If you go watch old Rashad Evans fights, when he's in space, he's head movement, shoulder movement, shuking, jucking, jiving, all the good stuff. Then he commits to moving forward, all of it stops, and he's just ramrod straight in. Huge portions of his career. It was kind of funny. Cutelaba's got a little bit of that, where when he commits, it's just, here we go. And Sterling had a little bit of a decent read on that. I think the big thing was just Sterling being ready for some of the scrambles that he was going to have to do with Kutalaba, being prepared for the front headlock stuff. Kutalaba does not have a deep grappling game, but what he does have is a pretty good squeeze, and because he fights in a terrible division, he's drilled in a couple of attacks that are lower percentage against really good fighters, but will carry you through the vast majority of the dross at light heavyweight. So he's got a pretty good guillotine choke, and he's got a pretty good sequence with it. And that helped him a lot. Like that's kind of what's helped him through this. Like the guillotine and then the arm triangle on top. There's some stuff he's been doing that has helped him a great deal. And Sterling was just ready for the couple of attacks he tends to use. And then countered one against the fence, got standing over seated Kutalaba after a fairly high pace for Kutalaba through, through a round and a half. Sorry, 2.5. No, it was round 2. So yeah, 2.5 rounds, a round and a half, give or take, and just teed off on him there. Sterling definitely starting to make some moves. Like, light heavyweight being so terrible is definitely a mark in his favor. Tristan asking, which light heavyweight prospect do I like the most out of these? Navo Sterling, Iwo Baraneski, or Abdul Rahman Yakhyayev? Long-term Sterling. I think his style is built more for longevity. Baraneski is fun as heck, but he's very used to this has been noted time and time again. If you're the kind of fighter that is very, very used to getting people out of there in the first round and you get to the UFC like that, there's guys in the UFC you can get out in the first round. You're going to find people you can't. And then a lot of times, guys who are very, very used to just one-round fights, they start to fall apart the first couple of times they get like second, third round. I need to see him go deeper before I have a lot of optimism. And Yakhyayev, I don't know. They clearly want him to be something. He's very young and he's super dynamic, but same kind of thing as Baraneski. Like, okay, you can go out there and run over cans. Like, good. You can look good doing it. Also good. But Yakhyayev, I think, is going to be a long-term project. Sterling might be closer to the top now than any of them. Again, Baraneski is going to be a fan favorite. How far that style is going to take him, I don't know. And what does he do when that style starts failing him? I also don't know. Those are the relevant questions. Sterling right now is the most polished, and again, I think his style lends itself to more longevity. Like if Baraneski stays doing what he's doing, he's going to knock guys out, but he's going to start getting hurt. And you're going to start burning through your career very quickly if you constantly fight like him. The number of people who like sustained longevity fighting like that are very, very short. That's not a long list, especially at the bigger weight classes. There's just a bit too much on the line. And I need to see Yakhyayev fight people who don't suck before I have a genuine assessment. So yeah, good win for Sterling. He wants to fight someone like Alonzo Menafield next. I think that's probably about right. Again, I don't need to see him rocket it up, but he should probably fight someone in the 12 to 15 range next, give or take. Featherweight Christian Rodriguez defeated Haider Amil with a technical submission, guillotine choke, 3:43 of the first. Fun little fight. Remember what I just said about Baraneski? Look at Haider Amil. They don't call that guy the Hurricane for nothing. All offense, all action. He's like 5 fights into his UFC career, and it's already about to run out. That kind of style, it is just, you'll have success. I'm not saying you won't. But when the wheels come off of that, they come off in a hurry, and you have to do some major work to fix things. And And depending on a couple of, physiological and genetic predilections, you may never be able to. Rodriguez looked pretty good here. Handled the pressure of Emil pretty well. Good punches. Landed a lovely head kick that set the finish up. Head kick. Emil tries to wrestle up. Gets caught with a power guillotine. Slight. I have a personal distinction between a ninja choke and a power guillotine that some people don't, but for those of you who may be curious, a ninja choke is the full-on figure four grip with your arms and their head in your chest. What Rodriguez had was one arm around in the guillotine choke, but the head was in the armpit. And he just, instead of grabbing here, he kind of had this going and had leveraged that all the way up. So head here, but instead of, this and squeezing, it's this and up. And that's a bit more of a, when you get around here instead of across, that's a bit more of the power guillotine variant. And if you don't actually get the figure four with the arms and the head being here instead of here, my personal distinction for whatever that's worth. So good win for Rodriguez, who is, I don't know what his ceiling is. I don't know that it's like super high, but he's definitely a guy I think worth having around. Same as the Charles Jourdain Gilly. Similar. Jourdain does a bit more of a traditional high elbow guillotine, but similar. This was, if you want another like sort of equivalent, this was a little bit more like what Cody McKenzie used to do. If you know how Cody McKenzie would finish guillotines, a little bit more like that, but that's like really in the weeds stuff about why I call that a power guillotine and not a ninja choke, and vice versa. It doesn't matter that much. It was a good choke. So Christian Rodriguez, I don't know. He got in here. Yeah, Cody for forgetting his shorts. For those of you who don't know, Cody McKenzie is a weird man. To make weight, he once donated blood, and they let him fight. Yeah, he also forgot his shorts, his fight shorts. He bought basketball shorts with the pockets in them and fought with the price tag still on his shorts in the UFC. Serious sport. Moving on to featherweight. They're still at featherweight. We had like 3 featherweights in a row. Murtazali Magomedov beat Melsik Bagdasaryan with a Scottish/Japanese twister, 117 of the first. Melsik Bagdasaryan still with the Glendale Fight Club, and this is what's going to happen to him over and over again. A few strikes back and forth. Bagdasaryan gets a very quick takedown, gets to the back right away, just effortless. Gets a body triangle, and then when Bagdasaryan tries to turn into him, he gives up the old, again, like the Japanese twister, or the Scottish twister, which is weird that we call it that because a Scottish guy kind of popularized it. It happens most often in Japan, but if you look at Grabaka Hitman has documented this. The first time it kind of actually happened was Askar Askarov doing it in Russia. It's similar to a twister, but normally a twister is your legs, you're like one hook in, but instead of the other hook, you're like one of your legs, and normally like you'd be on the other side of the hip, but you connect your legs here. Then you go to the opposite side, around the arm, wrap the head. It's a wrestling guillotine. An amateur wrestling guillotine, because when you get it, you can just easily turn the shoulders over to the mat. This is done similarly, but with a body triangle instead of the leg attack or the leg lace control. And it's nasty. It's real nasty. I mean, this one in particular, like Magomedov was this close to a dragon sleeper. If you've never seen one of those, they are terrifying because they're not actually a choke. They look like kind of a guillotine from the back, like a revert. If you're on the back, then one arm goes around the neck. They're not a choke. Like what you have is leverage over the head and neck, and then control of the hips, and you just lean back and you can break somebody's neck with it. It's real nasty. So he was close to that. Like solid win for Magomedov, but also I'm not going to say a gimme. But this was not hard to predict. Magomedov is good and has fought some very good guys to get to the UFC. Melsik Bagdasaryan still trains with Edmund Tarverdian. and has been out of action for over a year. This was easy to see coming. Also at featherweight, Vinicius Oliveira TKOs Andre Fili, punches and elbows, 4:56 of the second. This was your fight of the night, and I don't hate that one going here. A lot of kicks early from Oliveira. Messed up his foot on one of them. Still threw the kick afterwards because he's a madman. He was able to consistently, two reasons he was able to like get this in the end. He consistently got Fili to the fence. Now, to Fili's credit, he hurt Oliveira with some body kicks in the first round. I actually think Fili got the first round with those. But a more measured approach from Oliveira, more mindful of his ring presence. I'll get to that in a second, Tristan. And he just kind of got worn down by Oliveira just bludgeoning him over and over again. Oliveira adding in more weapons as the fight wore on. You know, he had the calf kicks early, started throwing knees because anytime they got close, Fili would cover up and look to avoid punches, and that's a really good way to get hit with a knee. Started adding elbows. I love me some tomahawk elbows. I'm so glad they're a thing. Part of the problem is Oliveira gets Fili on the fence, hurts him, and he starts throwing the tomahawk elbows. If you don't know what those are, that's kind of a standing 12-6 elbow. It's chopping in with this. And he threw at least one that was a very dubious legality to the back of Fili's head. There were several. Look, anytime you as a fighter are going to cover up and turn away, this is just a training thing. Because you train very hard not to hit the back of the head. You don't train, this is such a weird thing, but you don't train to defend against things that are against the rules. I mean, there's certain fighters that if you fight, you should be training for those, but that's a whole other thing. So there's a lot of defense in MMA in particular that with smaller gloves and what you're trying to guard, you don't actually guard the back of your head because they're not supposed to hit you there. That's fine. I get it, but that's a bad habit. Like, I'm not saying the rules shouldn't be enforced. I'm saying if you're a fighter, you should be training some of your defense with I'm hurt. I need to protect this very vulnerable area because it's just common sense. Also, you know, the referees are not great about this, and it's a confusing thing. Look, Herb Dean kind of got killed for talking a little bit about what actually constitutes the back of the head. This is a relative to the, Gane and Oliveira finish. And he's right. Like, it's not just the full on, you don't like cut this in half and like none of this is legal. That's not how that works. There's like this much space going down the back, and then anything on the back of the neck and like very base. Like, that's all the stuff that you're really not allowed to hit. It presents these areas on the back of the head, like behind your ears here. I'll turn this away. So like this is legal, this is legal. Little further, no. This, okay. And that can be a very hard thing to police in real time. It can also be a very, very difficult thing to figure out what's going on when if I start punching and you turn around so I hit you in the back of the head, how much of that is on you? Like almost all of it. If I'm throwing this, if I throw a punch and you're like, oh, I don't want to get punched in the face, let me do a 180. And you get punched square in the back of the head. Like, I just punched and you put yourself into that position. That's on the person doing the defending. So how much of this is somebody starts throwing a legal strike and the guy defending moves in a bad way and exposes that? And so we got a comment here. If it connects with any part of the ear, it's legal. That's not the actual definition, but referees will say that to fighters as shorthand for what is legal. So you'll hear Jason Herzog does this all the time. If someone's in that position and they're throwing punches, Herzog will say ears. He's not giving you actual advice. He's not giving tactical advice. He's not even necessarily specifically talking about the full on legal area because, again, that's not exactly how this works, but it's good shorthand for be careful what you hit. And as a general rule, if you do hit anything with this, you're going to be okay. Like that's very legal. Again, this is legal. This is iffy. Like this is legal. This isn't because now we're in the back of the neck. Like because you can't hit there. Like that's where the brainstem is. Yeah, Tristan chiming in. Yeah, like it's such a weird thing, but the referees have to say stuff like that in those positions, so the fighter knows I'm good, and it kind of does say to the guy getting hit, this is legal. You have to do something. And I'm never the biggest fan because like that puts referees in an awkward position where they're like communicating almost technical advice with the fighter, and that's really not what they're supposed to be doing, but they are reminding them of the rules. And that's what they have. So again, Herzog has his shorthand for it. Every referee is going to have like slightly different ways of communicating. Have I refed? No. I'm not certified. I could get certified, I suppose, if I wanted to. I'd have to look whatever the Utah Commission's requirements for it are. But hey, I would love to just do that for pennies. Referees get paid terribly, and then you just get yelled at by everybody for doing your job. It is a thankless job. I don't know that I'd want to, but in theory, I could. I mean, I'd have to brush up on the specifics of the rules, but there's nothing stopping me. Like I don't have any physical impalement to the best of my knowledge that would prevent me. Anyway, so Feely's not terribly happy, and in fairness, like he gets hit with one of those elbows that cuts him open, and where the cut is pretty in a pretty illegal spot. Like part of the question there is like how much of that would have mattered at that point. Like I don't think it would have. You were fading, and several of the elbows that Oliveira landed were perfectly legal. So, Oliveira gutting through some bad stuff, including like messing up his own foot, getting hurt with body kicks. I'm glad he's at featherweight. I believe him when he said it was killing him to make 135. I absolutely believe him. He's an exciting fighter. I love Volk. He's also, 37. He's not going to be here all that much longer. Featherweights do some genuine turnover. And there's a few guys there now starting to be poised to do it. Oliveira, I think, could be an interesting player. What his ceiling exactly is, that remains to be seen, but I would be curious. I'm curious to see what he does here. Beating Andre Fili is not an easy thing to do. Which is weird because like he's just done the win-loss thing. I say it's not easy to beat him. Almost no one who has beat him has just run over him. Like you have to be there and be fighting. So, and that was your main card. All finishes. There were a lot of finishes on this card. Not exclusively finishes, but a lot. Oh. Sorry, just chiming in here. Mostly even if only one shot is illegal, it should be a foul. When there's a foul, he's supposed to allow the fighter 5 minutes. Yeah, I get it. Here's the counterpoint to that, if you don't mind me offering this up. How many times have we seen someone in a not dominant position, but okay control position, and they're throwing crappy little hammer fists, several of which hit the back of the head? We're going to take away, we'll turn into soccer if we go down this road too far. Like, I agree that what we're doing right now isn't great. I do want to be mindful of how much we want to adjudicate this. Tristan chiming in. Also, Alex hiding his head like that is I don't know if you mean nonsense or not safe with that one. Look, if you're holding a single leg, here's the thing. If we're talking just about the Pereira and Gane situation, I rewatched it. Yeah, definitionally, it is absolutely a foul. I wish there was a better way to adjudicate this. I really do. Because this is a thing that needs to be more strictly enforced. 1,000,000%. I just don't know what exactly the way to go about it is right now. And again, there's some of these are very fluid. Okay, so very briefly about the Gane and Pereira bit of this, because this happening right at the week after the Gane Pereira thing is kind of why it's more in the mind. Doubly so that Herb Dean was refereeing both of these fights. I rewatched the Gane Pereira thing. I'm not going to say none of those are illegal. Some of them are. Not as many as you think are illegal. The problem is that Cyril Gane is reckless. Like he's just reckless. Minimum, if not outright dirty. I don't think he's outright dirty, but he's definitely reckless. Yeah, again, I don't want to spend forever on this one, but can't recall a single finishing sequence where a guy is hurt, gets hit in the back of the head, and the ref pauses things to let the guy recover from the illegal blow. Yeah, that almost never happens. And yeah, I wish I had a better idea for how to handle this. I really do. But again, the Pereira Gane thing, like part of what's going on with that is when Pereira's holding the single leg, he's doing what a lot of wrestlers do. This is a thing that a lot of MMA fighters do. When you're grabbing and you're hurt, you're bent over, you're grabbing, your arm is all the way up here, wrapped, and you're holding on like this. And you tend to have both here. So you've actually got like all of this blocked off by your arms and shoulders, and only the back of the head is exposed, and you're not supposed to hit that. So guys will then try to elbow, and a lot of times what happens, this happened a couple of times with Pereira, the elbow actually hits a legal target like the shoulder or the arm, and then kind of bounces to hit the back of the head, or like glances, hits here, and then just moves. And it looks like they're really being hit in the back of the head when the majority of the impact doesn't go there. And again, like if this was the first time we'd ever had an issue with Cyril Gane maybe hitting the back of the head, I think we'd all kind of just be like, whatever with this. The real problem is that Gane has done this over and over and over again, and he's just undisciplined about it. And that's not okay. In the case of, Oliveira and Fili, I think Oliveira was being more judicious. Like, he was not reckless. He was wanting to throw those kinds of elbows, was throwing those kinds of elbows, and just they were moving. Yeah, again, I wish there was a better way to adjudicate this. I really do. I may have to think about like how I would prefer to see this handled, because I don't like how it's being handled now, where we all just kind of ignore it. As far as the Pereira Gane thing, yeah, we have a comment here. The fight should have been stopped a little bit earlier. Yeah, you can absolutely make that argument, and I won't disagree with you too much. I don't think he would have been finished either way. I do. Like that's the other thing. Like, Pereira was badly hurt. And I to the best of what I've observed, I don't think I don't think the hit blows to the back of the head, the ones that did land. There's a lot that were just legal. There's few that weren't. And that's not to like defend Cyril Gane. You shouldn't hit the back of the head. The rules are in place. But yeah, they could have stopped that fight earlier, for the record. All right, moving on to the prelims. Big upset here, actually. Kevin Borjas misses weight, came in at 129. But he beats Andre Lima via unanimous decision, 130-27 to 29-28. Just took Lima forever to get going in this one. Borjas took a nasty low kick to the groin in the second round. I thought we were done. I'm going to be honest. Like, if that wasn't as bad as it looked, Borjas did some really good acting. But he was just better at combination work. The big cloud hanging over this is the dude missed weight by a non-trivial amount. Like, you missed weight by 4 pounds. That's not nothing, man. That said, like, Lima, there's some stuff he's got to do. He also, dude, speaking of fouls, like, Lima grabbed the fence a lot. There was a lot of fence grabbing on this card, several of which, who I think was Kerry Hatley, just never commenting on it. Immediately right after the 5 minutes. Yeah, look, he did get kicked in the groin. I think he probably, let me be clear when I say he milked it. He got kicked in a bad spot in the groin, too. Like that, they were both just kicking at the same time, but Lima's kick, like, came up into the area between your legs, but, like, behind the cup and then pulled forward. That's a really unpleasant sensation. That said, if you get fouled, I don't care how bad it is. If you want to take the 5 minutes, that's your time after you were fouled. I think he took, and look, milking it, that's his time to milk. You don't want somebody to have that time to recover, don't foul them. Like, that's his. And I get that this was accidental. I don't think Lima was even close to trying to kick him in the groin. It just happened, and that happens. But if you're in a fight and you get fouled and the ref says you have 5 minutes, if you want to take all 5 minutes, it is the ref doesn't get a say in that. Like, the referee is there to ask you, are you ready to continue? And to let you know how much time you have left. When they got to the end of the time, Borjas said, yes, I can fight. And they restarted the fight. If you may, like, think poorly of him for that, and that's fine. But he didn't fake the foul. We all watched it. We all heard it. We all watched the replay, the slow motion. There was a foul. He got to do with that time what he wanted to do with it. Yeah, the weight miss is the much bigger deal for me. I don't know what we're going to do with him. Lima, tough setback. He's got to fix some stuff. Like, he's got to be a bit more proactive. Mark Goddard loves to intervene. I think Goddard likes to be proactive in those situations. I think Goddard also has to, and he's maybe just a bit more vocal about this. If you're the ref in that situation, you actually have to wrangle a lot of stuff. You have to communicate with the fighter. You also have to potentially communicate with the other guy. You also have to communicate with the doctor and other officials. Like, Goddard's just vocal about that. So a lot of times during a fighter's 5 minutes, he's trying to assess. And he does that a bit more proactively. Not my favorite way for a referee to go about that, by the way. But yeah, like, if you've been fouled, you get 5 minutes. Well, for certain fouls, you get 5 minutes. If you want to take all 5, if you're ready to go after 30 seconds and you just want the other 4:30 to yourself, that's your time to do with as you please by the rules. So, yeah, a big upset there for Borjas. I don't know what we're actually going to do with him because of the weight miss and everything. Lima needs to fix some stuff. Women's bantamweight, Bia Mesquita submits Melissa Mullins with an armbar, 3:16 of the first. Mesquita's aggression on the feet, I think, is commendable, but her chin is straight up in the air. Did Lima say he was moving to bantamweight? I don't know that that's going to fix his problems. I don't think the weight class was the issue for him here, but People see that as an easy fix. And I mean, look, if the weight cut for him is a real look, if you were having trouble with a guy who missed weight at flyweight, there's some large bantamweights you're going to struggle with. But his call. Yeah, Lima didn't miss weight here either. It was Borjas who missed. So I don't know. I mean, Borjas. The other thing, like Borjas was 1-4, I think, in the UFC, something like that. Now you can finally get a win, but you miss weight to do it. Anyway, Mosquita and Mullins. So Mosquita gets tagged, gets a little reckless coming in. Like, I appreciate the aggression. I actually think her punches aren't bad. Lima has missed weight in the past. I'd have to I believe you. Like, I'll double check that, but he's not a big flyweight. Is kind of my point there. Like, if it might just really be a tough cut, even though he's not big for the weight class, though. So who knows? Bantamweight's a better division than flyweight overall, unless you're gaining a lot in that move. I don't know how much that's going to benefit you. Anyway, so Mosquita's like punches aren't terrible, but there's a lot of like the nuance of what you're supposed to do when you're striking that she's still very clearly working on. She gets tagged. She throws back after getting hurt and wobbled, but it's a bad spot for her to be in against Mullins. The problem is Mullins isn't very good on the feet either. Like Mullins, if you look at her, like her past success is largely on the ground with ground and pound. So she ties up with Bia Mesquita, a like 10-time world champion in jiu-jitsu. Bia tries to throw. Actually tries a really nice throw. Mullins kind of smothers it, so Bia just pulls guard, but winds up pulling guard. And this is the point at which Melissa Mullins should have realized something was not going her way, because guard play is so much feel based. She should have felt long before we, the audience, saw, oh, this isn't going right for her. Mesquita quickly gets her high guard in play, does some rubber guard work, like is clearly active. The big thing with this one is she has a pretty tight overhook on the right arm of Mullins. Those of you who don't know this, when you're on top, you don't want to put your arms on the mat. They can be tied up and controlled. Ideally, what you have is your hands on the chest and your elbows flared. Because if you're like hands on the chest and your elbows are in a straight line with that across the body, not great. You want it flared out so you can kind of feel and block hip movement with them. But Mullins had her right hand on the ground, and that gets overhooked, and that was tight. Once Mesquita got that, like you need to be very, very aware of that arm. And Mullins, she did almost exactly the wrong thing at this point. She tries to hit with the left hand because her right arm is now tied up with that overhook. Okay, you want to strike with the other hand, but you've got to be cognizant of what's going on. And the problem is she throws this left elbow, but she puts enough force into it that she turns. If you want to avoid one of the ways you avoid being attacked from the top, if you're on top, one of the ways you avoid being attacked from the opponent's full guard is to keep your hips square. Like your hips, their hips. You want them to be square. The more the person on bottom can get here, the more trouble you're in. Especially again with an arm bar. So the right arm is tied up. Bia's hips are going to go. Make sure I can do this. So right arm tied up. Bia's hips are going to go this way. Sorry, this way. To get the elbow into the fulcrum point of the crotch, right? Hips are going to go this way. So if you're on top, you want your hips to go the same direction so she can't find an angle. The way that Mullins threw that elbow, her upper body and her hips twisted the other direction. She actually helped create the angle for Mesquita to get the armbar. Nasty armbar because Bia Mesquita is an exceptional jiu-jitsu practitioner. She's only like 2-3 fights into her UFC career. Her game is real good when she can get it going. There's still stuff to work on, of course, but women's bantamweight needs help. Kayla Harrison isn't going to be around much longer. Amanda Nunes is barely coming out of retirement and is probably going to retire again after that fight with Harrison, win, lose, or draw. Okay, maybe not draw, but short of that. Mosquito might actually be something that the division that can like work within the division. Her jiu-jitsu is so good. So yeah, good win for Mosquito. Moving on, flyweight, Mitch Raposo got an upset, split decision over Alan Nascimento. Not too hard to score. Round 1 to Raposo, round 3 to Nascimento. Round 2 was close enough that I was okay with it going either way. I think it was round 2 that was the swing round to my way of thinking. Yeah, Raposo wore down a bit over the course of the fight. He just moves a lot. But Nascimento really felt stuck in the mud for the first couple of rounds. Really struggled to get things going. Dude, if someone from here was gonna like Ryzen rules Nascimento wins, yeah, I agree with that. Because Ryzen, for those of you who don't know, like Ryzen, not the only do this. One, they don't judge the fight round by round; they judge the fight as a whole. And I think if you judge the fight as a whole, I kind of agree that I think Nascimento would have won that. But that's not the rule set they were operating under. I think this was the last fight on Raposo's deal. I don't know if they'll bring him back. He's not. I don't know. He's just kind of there. Let's see. Featherweight next. Gaston Bolaños with an upset over Michael Aswell Jr. Unanimous decision, 29-28. Yeah, I did not have a lot of hope for Bolaños at featherweight, but once he got a feel for Aswell's offense and he like wasn't super worried about it, he started coming to life. Good combination work. Very like the right kind of movement and then countering. Aswell young. Too much headhunting from Aswell. Like once Bolaños got a feel for the combinations that were coming at him, he just blocked up top, and Aswell never attacked the body. Almost never. Certainly never in combination, which would have done him some favors here, I think. That was an okay fight. Welterweight. Oh, this fight. Levon Chokoli just dog walked Leon Shabazi and TKOs him in 23 seconds. Comes out, hard calf kick. That mess with Shabazian. Dude, watch Shabazian even before that lands. His footwork is bad. Like, watch how his feet are moving. Not good. Very not good. Yeah, kicked real hard. Kicked again. That leg was toast. Chokoli gets him to the fence. Couple of punches up top. Hellacious left hook to the body. Shabazian falls over, clutching his leg in agony. Ref stops it. Yeah, Chokoli's good. Leon Shabazian looked like he'd never been in a fight before. I mean, he looked terrible. Just terrible. I don't know what else to say about that. Like, looked awful. Chokoli, on the other hand, like he had a solid run through Bellator. I mean, it was a little up and down, but he's fought real competition. And he took a little bit of the hard way to get here, but he did. So good win for him. Women's bantamweight, Luana Santos beat Carol Hossa via unanimous decision, 30-27 across the boards. Hossa does a lot of forward motion, but a lot of her offense has diminished, and she tied up with Santos too much. Santos is a very good judoka. A lot of clinch work to be expected. Hossa just like slipped in the first opening seconds of the second round, and Santos got on top, and Hossa never got up. Santos, another one that we might be able to like look to the future for women's bantamweight with. There's stuff about her game I don't care for, but she's got time to develop. And kicking everything off, Shane Collins defeated Otari Tenzilovi via unanimous decision, 30-27. Tenzilovi showed some decent skill, but the size was a factor. Good pressure consistently from Collins. Some nice body work from both guys. It was an okay fight. And that was the card. Again, big ups to this card for actually moving quickly. This whole thing, start to finish, broadcast time was like maybe 6 hours, which is a rarity these days. Bonuses, I mentioned already, Oliveira and Feely was fight of the night. I'm okay with that. It was not as long as some of the other ones, but like I think the other honorable mention here was probably Raposo and Nascimento, which just wasn't as dramatic as this one. Performances of the night went to Manel Kape and Murtazali Magomedov. You were spoiled for choice on this card. I would have loved to have seen Levon Chokoli get one of those. I just don't know which one you like. You had the first ever Japanese/Scottish twister, and then you had Kape TKOing Horiguchi after being down 2 rounds. Those are going to be hard to beat. I would have loved to have seen Chokoli get one of those though, because if you're rewarding the whole performance, dude, okay, Leon Shabazian seems to be very not good at this. But doing that to somebody else, doing that to another human being was impressive as heck. So that's it. Full report, of course, in the MMA Zone to 411mania.com. Go give that a read if you are so inclined. I appreciate it when you do. Okay, let's reset the old spreadsheet. Make a note of the time because this is all the fun stuff I have to do under these circumstances. Let's move on to UFC Fight Night 280. I mentioned already we're going to be back in Baku, Azerbaijan. They were here just last year. I think the Azerbaijani government's only paying for 2 of these, and then we'll see if they want to do a third. So that'll be an interesting choice. The 6 a.m. start time for you is brutal on this upcoming one, dude. That's 5 for me. Like I feel for you, I really do. Like, when do the prelims on? Because I got to do the prelims. So hang on just a sec. Let me have a look at this. Oh, sorry, I'm doing the math wrong there. Yeah, the prelims start at 7 for me. I might actually be able to sleep, but man, I hate getting up that early. Okay, 7, not as bad as. Okay, I was expecting that to be terrible. Like start at 3 in the morning. Yeah, sorry, I'm other way. I'm not an hour earlier than Pacific. That would be awkward. Living just out there in even Alaska's further away than that. Sorry, so that's 7 for me because I'm mountain. So I'm an hour ahead of you guys. So 7 a.m. start time. That'll be fun. Let's have a look at this. So some of these fights are not great. Some of them are actually okay. Main event, I think, is a good fight. You have the Azerbaijani Rafel Fiziev taking on Manuel Torres. This is a good fight. It's the main event because of the nationalistic interests. Let's be transparent about that. But it's a good fight. It's a well-matched fight. Fiziev, still only 33. The problem is he did not look good against Hoofy. He's just 1-4 in his last 5. Now, the thing about that is those 4 losses, 2 of them are to Justin Gaethje. The fight with Gamrot, I don't know how much I count that against him because that ended due to a knee injury. And then the Hoofy fight is the tough one, but he also beat up Ignacio Bahamondes his last time in Azerbaijan. So it's a rough stretch, but he lost twice to Gaethje. he gave him a tough fight both times, tougher the first time than the second. But oh no, you lost twice to that guy. I can't hold that too much against you. And the Gamrot fight was weird because injury was okay through the first, like for as long as it lasted, it was a pretty solid fight. And the Hoofy loss is the one that I think is potentially more telling. But and it doesn't help that Manuel Torres is not a small man. He's 5'10", which is, pretty tall for the division. I mean, Ignacio Bahamondes is taller, but Torres is also better, I think, overall. Torres does have a loss to Bahamondes. He's on a 2-fight winning streak. He stopped Drew Dober. He stopped Grant Dawson. Like, this is kind of a come or go and fight for Fiziev. Fiziev has fought some of the best guys in the division. Again, Gagey twice, Gamrot. What's some other guys on the come up? Let me run through this. Fought Rafael dos Anjos, King Green, Moicano. Like, he's fought good guys. But we're trying to figure out if he's actually coming or going. The 5 rounds is kind of my big X factor here. I don't know how Torres will hold up over 5. I expect a lot of violence in this fight, so I'm going to be happy with it. But I need to rewatch. At the moment, I'm going to pick Fiziev, but this gets an asterisk. I need to look up something. There's a couple of things I need to double check on Torres. But like, absolutely looking forward to that fight. Good fight. What are the odds on that? Just morbid curiosity. Very, very slight lean Fiziev on the odds. I understand that. Again, I need to look at a couple of. I need to remind myself of Torres a little bit more clearly before I feel strong one way or the other. But it's a good fight. The co-main things go downhill a little bit after this. Co-main event is Shara Magomedov and Michelle Pereira. Like, we're trying to rebuild the dude with one eye. Magomedov did beat Marc-Andre Barrio his last time out, somewhat barely. And he's getting a guy who I think is a little washed. Like, the move to middleweight, I think, extended Michelle Pereira's career by a non-trivial margin, but he lost to Anthony Hernandez. No shame there. Fluffy's real good. He lost to Abus Magomedov. That's dicey. I don't think Abus is all that good. He got stopped by Kyle Dawkins in less than a minute. Losing to Kyle Dawkins is no shame. Kyle Dawkins is pretty good. That fast? His last win, he's coming off of a split decision win over Zach Reese. They are lining up Magomedov for a win here. That is the intention. That is what the odds look like, and I would be foolish to discount that. I'm going to agree with the odds and the obvious. I agree with what they're going to succeed with what they're trying to do in this fight. Lightweight next, another Nazim Sadakov's like from Brooklyn, but I think his parents are from Azerbaijan. Or is he Azerbaijani and just immigrated? He was born in Moscow. Yeah, okay. Okay. So Sadakov coming off that loss to Faris Ziam, that was tough. That was his first loss since his pro debut. He is fighting Matthews Camilo, who is, let me find something about this gentleman. 10-3. Has not fought the best guys. Is he UFC debut? No, he's 1-1. He lost to Gabe Green and he beat Vyacheslav Borshev. Okay, you beat Borshev. That means almost nothing to me. They're trying to give Sadikov a very winnable fight here. Camilo is not a scrub, but Sadikov's decent. Just Zion was a terrible matchup for him. But he should probably rebound here without too much difficulty. Okay. Okay, we got another good fight here. Flyweight, Asu Almabayev and Charles Johnson. Good fight. Tough fight. Almabayev is actually small even for flyweight. Wrestling first offense. Charles Johnson tends to do pretty well against those guys as a general proposition. Johnson can wrestle. The problem is like Almabayev moves a lot, and that can frustrate Johnson. Almabayev is also good about like killing time. But Johnson tends to make those guys work and then is able to like find stuff against them. My hunch, the odds like Almabayev, has Johnson passed it? My hunch is actually pick Johnson. He's coming off a win over Bruno Silva. He lost to Alex Perez before that. Like he knocked out Lonnie Kavanaugh, who's on a good run. Like this is actually stylistically a tough fight for Almabayev. I mean, if we look at the physicality of it, Almabayev, 23-3, like he's certainly not a bad fighter, but he's 5'4" with a 65-inch reach. And Johnson is 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. Like, there's some things he's going to have to try and overcome there that I'm not entirely sure he will be able to. Quick look what Almabayev's been doing recently. 6-1 in the UFC. The losses to Manuel Kape. 2-fight winning streak. He beat Jose Ochoa and he beat out. Okay. The thing is, like, people are looking at he choked out Alex Perez and Perez stopped Johnson. Almabayev's also been out since November of last year. He had a fight with Moreno fall through back in February. I'm going to give myself an asterisk because I may wake up and smack my past self for this, but I actually think stylistically this favors Johnson. He's long, has power, pretty good about making like timing reads. And Almabayev does a lot of wrestling, but is not the biggest threat to finish. Again, I may wake up in the morning and feel very, very differently, but as I sit here right now, that's why this one gets an asterisk. I think stylistically, Johnson has a very good shot at this. This is the kind of fight that going to a split with Bruno, not that great in hindsight. That shouldn't have been split, first of all. But Johnson has a lot of split decisions on his resume. I mean, here's the thing about this. Like Charles Johnson is kind of the Michael Johnson of flyweight. Like Michael Johnson has some of the weirdest wins in his career when you look at like guys he's beaten. Like he's knocked out Dustin Poirier. Like, but he's also had weird losses. And Charles Johnson kind of fits like Lonnie Kavanaugh's highly ranked right now, and Charles Johnson knocked him out. And then he went on to lose to Alex Perez. Like that's just kind of how he is. And it's a stylistic thing for me in this case. Like this is kind of just as I'm sitting here, I'm hedging my bets a little bit, but Almabayev has to wrestle and has to out wrestle Charles Johnson for 3 rounds. He may get the decision, but this is the kind of fighter that Charles Johnson does tend to give fits to. And Almabayev does not have a lot of like other gears to go to. So take that for what it's worth at the moment. Again, I may feel differently tomorrow, but I think this is a stylistically favorable fight. Middleweight next, Ikram Alaskarov. We all had some moderate hopes for. That hasn't quite panned out. I mean, it hasn't been terrible, but his UFC record thus far is 4-1. His only loss is to Robert Whittaker. Oh no, one of the greats. Last two fights, he TKO'd Andre Muniz, and he got a unanimous decision over the Iron Turtle, Jun Young Park. He almost fumbled that in the last round. Like, Park was this close to pulling off another miracle upset, if memory serves. Like, Alaskarov just kind of faded down the stretch, and Park did what he always does. He is the Iron Turtle, man. He just keeps going. And anyway, he's fighting the Hulk, Bruno Ferreira. And the thing of this is, Bruno Ferreira has power, but I don't know how reliable he is. He's coming off a loss to Gregory Rodriguez. He gets stopped in the first round there. He had an okay winning streak before that. He also lost to Abus Magomedov. His winning streak before that was Armin Petrosian, Jackson McVeigh, and then he missed weight beating Marvin Vettori. Alaskarov may screw this up, but skill for skill, he should win this fight. And whether or not that actually holds up remains to be seen, but I don't have too many problems picking him here. And the odds like Almabayev, I wouldn't be comfortable paying out plus 200 on Charles Johnson in that other flyweight fight, by the way. Like, you got to pay out almost 3-1. Like that. That would be tough. That would be real tough. Anyway, this one, yeah, the odds like Alaskarov, that I completely understand. And kicking off the main card, oh look, Abus Magomedov and Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. I want to pick Oleksiejczuk. I think middleweight's been good for him because he was an undersized light heavyweight for a while, getting by on like pace and body punches and all that good stuff. Let's see. When did he move to middleweight? Moved to middleweight in 22. Yeah, it's been a little up and down. He had a 3-fight losing streak. 3-fight winning streak going right now. The problem is, like, none of these guys are all that. I shouldn't say none of them are any good. He's disposed of Cedricus Dumas in short order, as you should. Ditto Gerald Mershart, and then he's coming off a win over Marc-Andre Barrio. That was a pretty good fight overall. Oleksiejczuk tends not to fade all that much, and Abus does. Abus is big. I can easily see Magomedov like forcing this to just be wrestling. He's still going to fatigue, though. It's kind of what he does. Abus is coming off of a tough lot. Like, Joe Pyfer kind of ran him over. His 3 wins before that, Warley Alves, Bruno Ferreira, and Michel Pereira. Who has he beaten that's actually any good? Like, what's his best win? It's probably Ferreira, right? Like, his UFC wins are Dustin Stoltzfus, Warley Alves, Bruno Ferreira, and Michel Pereira. It's either Ferreira or Pereira. And neither of those is actually super impressive. Yeah, screw it. I'm going with Oleksiejczuk. I just don't think Abus is all that good. Out of curiosity, what are the odds? The odds are very slightly favor Magomedov. Like I get it, but I ain't go. No, I ain't picking him. On the prelims, let's see what we got here. I believe we have a couple of debutantes in the form of Faman Hassanov and Eric Nolan. I've seen before, right? So Hassanov is Azerbaijani, undefeated. He's the local guy getting the UFC debut. Fights out of American Top Team. That's respectable. Eric Nolan's always in bangers. I'm gonna double check that. That's probably true. So yeah, Hassanov, 3-fight winning streak through the LFA. That's respectable. The LFA is a legitimate organization. Nolan is 8-4. Lost his UFC debut to Basanger Susurkayev. He had a good run through CFFC. This is where he did most of it. I think all of his career, actually, prior to the UFC, was there. All right. So is this just a guy who's going to get a bit of a bump that he doesn't deserve and pay for it? Or is Nolan here to just kind of do the job? The odds like Hassanov, I'm just going to respect the odds on this one. I don't know enough about Hassanov to feel otherwise about this. Oh, for whatever that's worth. Let's see. Light heavyweight, Abdul Rahman Yakhyayev and Julius Walker. There's a very obvious outcome to this fight. Yakhyayev is Turkish, undefeated, 9-0. 2 wins in the UFC. Yeah, he ran over Rafael Cerqueira, and then, dude, he got tagged by Brenderson Hiberio. Now, Julius Walker's not good enough to build on that. Julius Walker is, 0-2 in the UFC? 1-2? 1-2. Lost to Alonzo Menafield, beat Rafael Cerqueira, and then lost to Dustin Jacoby. Let's not pretend we're not setting up Yakhyayev here. We can have enough integrity here to admit what's going on, but that's because, that's what we do. Okay, Nursultan Ruzboyev and Andrei Pulayev. This is probably not a bad fight. Ruzboyev 36-9-2. 2 no contest thrown in. 4-1 in the UFC. Had a loss to Joaquin Buckley. He bounced between middleweight and welterweight for a bit, was part of his problem. Been out for over a year is the other problem. He beat Eric McConico. He beat Dustin Stoltzfus. Then he had a fight fallout with Brian Battle in August of last year. He hasn't been seen since May of 25, so over a year out. Pulayev 10-4. Let's see what you've got, buddy. He had a rough UFC debut, didn't he? He's 1-2. Yeah, he lost to Christian Leroy Duncan in a kind of a rough fight. He beat Nick Klein, then he lost to the Gauthier. The Gauthier fight was weird because that was the one where he made Gauthier do a lot of work to get that decision when everyone was kind of expecting Gauthier to bulldoze him. For lower level middleweights, this is not a bad fight. Give the matchmaker some credit there. I think I'm going with Ruzboyev, though. Come on. But give Pulayev some credit. He's going to be in that fight. That's not an unreasonable fight. Let's see. Con Offley and Javier Reyes, I believe, is next. Offley has struggled a bit. 13-4-1. 2-2 in the UFC. He had a tough first couple of fights, man. Lost to Myron Santos and Muhammad Naimov. Not going to shame him too much. Those guys are both pretty good. He beat Ricardo Ramos and Yi Zha. That Yi Zha fight was weird. I kind of thought that should have been a draw. Like, he got a majority decision. That should have been a draw. I remember being not happy with the final scoring there. Reyes is from it's Venezuela. I think it's Colombia. That's Colombia. Yeah, there's no crest. 23-5. 3-fight winning streak, including a successful UFC debut over Douglas Silva de Andrade back in February. I vaguely recall that. He brutalized him. Okay, there's a physical component here I need to double check, because Offley is not a big featherweight. And I feel like Reyes is. He might have just looked big next to D Silva, because that man's a bantamweight. Reyes is 5'7", with a 73-inch reach. Yeah, for featherweight, he's very big. And Offley's also 5'7". Okay, it's the reach. It's the reach a little bit more. Okay. I feel like this should be Reyes. But let me check the odds. I'm curious what they've got. Yeah, the odds are with Reyes. I tend to agree. I just haven't felt strongly about Offley. Then only a couple more. Daniil Donchenko was supposed to fight somebody else. He was supposed to fight Andreas Gustafsson. Gustafsson, however, had heart issues and is no longer with the UFC. Instead, he's fighting Theodore Berggren. Yeah, Berggren, who is Swedish. Yeah, I don't have a problem picking Donchenko here. He's not a world beater, but on short notice, I wouldn't like too many people's chances against him. He is a fun violence boy. And I'm happy to see those guys succeed. Bantamweight, Bekzat Almakhan and John Matsumoto. This one might also be fun. John Matsumoto just can't have a bad fight. Unfortunately, he's also struggled a bit his last couple. Almakhan, 12-3, 1-2 in the UFC. Lost to Umar Nurmagomedov. Oh, the horror. Beat Brad Katona. Not very good. And lost to Alexander Taport. So his losses are to guys who are actually pretty good. The question is how good is John Matsumoto? Matsumoto 17-2. 3-2 in the UFC. His losses in the UFC are split decision. He had a split decision to Rob Font. That really could have gone his way, and a split decision to Farid Basharat that I kind of thought should have gone his way. Of course, somewhat counterpoint, that Miles John win was Matsumoto's good, but something about his offense just doesn't register with the judges. I may just go with the odds on this one, but John Matsumoto also tends to have really fun fights. The odds do like him here. I'm gonna respect that. Again, I think he's a good fighter. And lastly, kicking everything off at welterweight, we have Tahir Abdullayev, and Jefferson Nascimento. Abdullayev is 21-3. This is a welterweight, by the way. 4-fight winning streak coming into his UFC debut. Has he beaten anyone I know? Has he lost to anyone I know? Not really. That's fine. Oh, UAE Warriors, MMA series. Okay. So, respectable run thus far. Jefferson Nascimento is undefeated, 13-0. At a 6-fight, went 6-0 in the LFA. That's very respectable. Went 5-0 in Shudo. So he's not been in like BS organizations. Okay. That's, for a full-on curtain jerker, you could do worse. Let's see. Do we have odds on that one? We may not. All right. Let me ask this one. I need to see the odds, and I need to see a couple of things about each guy. But for the sake of doing something right now, I'll go with Abdulayev just because I think they're trying to get the crowd off to a hot start. Also, we may have something featuring Ismail Narudiev. He was supposed to fight. Who was he supposed to fight? Marvin Vittori. Vittori had a busted rib. We don't know what's going to go on there. We'll see who they pull if they get someone for Narudiev. But as it stands, those are going to be my predictions. So Saturday morning, early, stop by the MMA Zone of 411mania.com. I will have you covered. Do you think AJ McKee will win this weekend too? Is that on this card and I just missed it? Fighting Salamat Isbulayev. Oh, sorry, no, that's probably a PFL thing. Isbulayev is a real big deal. Like, that dude has been messing people up for a while. He's quite good. That's a really good fight, actually. That's one of the better fights the PFL can put on. So I'm not sure actually who wins that one, but that's a good McKee. I don't want to say might be past it, but dude, AJ McKee's been going for a while, and let me have a quick look at that PFL card actually. Pull that up. That's the San Diego card. What else is on there? Liz Camus and Viviane Araujo. Okay, Alexander Chablis and Alfie Davis. Rob Wilkinson's still out there doing the darn thing. Hassan Magomed Shapirov. Good. Or Magomed Sharapov against Joshua Weems. That will probably go one way and one way only. Ariane Silva. This is not a terrible PFL card. And again, that main event, like AJ McKee Jr. and Salamat Isbulayev is a very good fight. I think McKee is like more in his final form, but dude, Isbulayev that dude is a killer. Like, he is a serious handful for anyone. He has been tearing through people. And you would be a fool to discount him, even against someone as good as AJ. Like, just out of my own morbid curiosity, do we not have odds on any of that at the moment? Yeah, I don't think we do. Let me see if I can find them actually. PFL San Diego. Okay, they're giving Isbulaev a big step up. That may be one of those that's too much too soon, but that's a good fight. That's actually that's a very legitimate fight. My hunch might be just to lean McKee because of the experience edge, but as I said, Ishbulaev is, even if he loses this fight, that dude is going to be a problem for a lot of people for many years to come. He has been wrecking people. I mean, he was also like a very good kickboxer, if memory serves. So that'll be a good fight. Like, watch that fight. The PFL may annoy me in a lot of respects, but I want there to be viable alternatives to the UFC. I want a better marketplace. And McKee versus Ishbulaev is a very good fight. So check that out for anyone who, to the extent that I can give you a hard sell on it. That's what that's going to be. So anyway, you can find my MMA coverage of the UFC card, again, starting Saturday morning over at the MMA Zone of 411mania.com. Yeah, so stop by if you're inclined. Say hello. I always appreciate it. All right, let's get into some news, and then we'll get out of here. All right, so we do have the numbers, some of the numbers for UFC Freedom 250. Joe Rogan on his podcast, I think the one where he was talking with Justin Gagey and Trevor Whitman, which has some really interesting stuff in it. For those of you who like to get into the weeds on tactical stuff, he claimed that there were like 250 million viewers. My hunch is what we're going to find out he was talking about is like social media impressions rather than viewers, which they might have hit that number for that. The stuff we got at the moment from Nielsen and Paramount and whatnot, they don't actually list the peak viewership. They were looking at they had like 17 million people total who watched at least 1 minute of the event over the course of the event, and they had an average of 8.2 million. These are good numbers. Let's be very clear about that. They're about on par with the Netflix MVP MMA card, the Rousey Carano one. So let me say a couple of things. Pulling a total number for whatever you want to call it, for how much value you want to give the number they're giving, of 17 million on like the fourth biggest streaming site is actually a heck of a feat. And give the UFC some props there. Like, Paramount Plus does not have the reach at all of Netflix, Amazon Prime, HBO Max, or I can't quite say Disney Plus as the third, but like the Disney bundle, right? The combination of Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus. When you get all three of those things together, you probably have like the fourth one there. I don't know that I rate Peacock at all, especially since they lost WWE's stuff. And like, Paramount Plus is not one of the big streaming services. It's debatable how much you want to count Amazon Prime even necessarily. Because a lot of people just have it because they have Prime for shipping rather than we're really interested in all the great original content that Amazon Prime puts out. Amazon Prime has a good library, and especially since they own all the MGM stuff. But like, Paramount Plus is at best, like, the argument is, is it third or fourth kind of deal. Like, the water gets real muddy between HBO's, between like HBO, the Disney bundle, and Paramount Plus. Like, that's muddy water there. But like, it's an order of magnitude lower than Netflix. Like, a lot less. Had this been on Netflix, it would have done a big number. I think the real mistake, not airing this on CBS. Like, if you had put this on CBS, you would have had some pretty serious numbers just from people channel surfing. Kind of people would have checked it out as a curiosity. People aren't going to sign up for Paramount Plus for a curiosity that they may not care about. So these are good numbers, to be very clear. They're really good numbers for Paramount Plus for, again, like the third fourth biggest streamer. These have to be like really happy with this, really happy numbers. Could have been bigger with a different approach. That said, again, we don't actually know what the peak was. We don't know when the peak was. Ronda Rousey tried to do the victory lap, like, haha, see, I outdrew you. Like, here's the problem. One, again, Rousey Carano tried to appeal to a bunch of lapsed fans, and not even lapsed. Dude, there's a chunk of people who watched Ronda who weren't even fans of the sport. They just like more casually interested in Ronda Rousey killing people. Like that's who they were going after with that. And fine, they pulled a big number and I'm happy for them. I like, again, more options in the marketplace. Part of the problem with that is part of the problem with this whole debate. And if you want to understand like why I don't, the MVP MMA card did a big number. That's fine. Happy for him. They haven't done anything since. Jake Paul can try to troll all he wants and say, I'm still the biggest promoter in MMA. Like, no, you're not, dude. You had a big event. And that's not nothing. And I hope you have more, genuinely. But the UFC's had an event darn near every week since then. You've had nothing. Crickets. You've had crickets on the MMA side of things. Nothing. You're going to maybe do one more of these at the end of the year. Maybe. Meanwhile, in 2 weeks, the UFC is going to have another big event when Conor McGregor comes back, allegedly. Like, if we actually get Conor McGregor in the cage against Max Holloway, that's going to be a big deal. I would rather Conor were in jail, personally. But I'm not going to pretend that he's not going to draw. He's the last draw the UFC had. Like, legitimate draw. And he's probably going to die because Max is going to kill him. But Conor was like the last cult of personality the UFC allowed to exist. And yeah, he hasn't really won a fight in forever. Like since he fought Cowboy before COVID. Right? Like that's the last time he won a fight. He's coming off a horrible injury and multiple years on the shelf, but people will tune in for Conor. And that's going to do a big number. That's going to do big numbers for them. This is the machinery, guys. The UFC has a monopoly. Jake Paul can do one event a year that will do a good number, maybe. Tristan, I mean, Conor fight week will be massive. Yeah, dude. Just the numbers on what he did by doing that sit-down interview with Ariel Helwani. Look at the numbers that Ariel pulled on that. Like, I don't like Conor. I'm not even interested in Conor fighting. Just to be perfectly frank with you, I haven't been interested in him in a long time for a lot of reasons. But I know I can tell you, because I was here for the Conor ride. Like, I remember his debut. I remember that big rise. I remember the insanity of Mystic Mac and the McGregor fever. Like, we're not going to get exactly that, but a lot of people are going to show up for that fight. So it's going to be like the UFC does this. And then they're going to have other big events. Like, this is what the UFC does. They just are here every week. And when they want to do something big, or they do. If you're, Jake Paul or Scott Coker trying to get into this space again, like, there's not enough talent out there to really draw interest consistently, is the big hurdle you're facing. You did a good number with Rousey Carano, Jake, and I'm happy for you. I'm happy for everybody that got paid. I want alternatives to the UFC. I really do. But one event a year isn't going to do anything. Like, that's not a thing. And that's kind of all you're going to be able to do. Maybe 2. Because Netflix doesn't want crap, and there's not enough talent out there to make up the difference. Your next event isn't going to do what Rousey Carano did. And frankly, Rousey Carano underperformed relative to a lot of other fights that have been on Netflix. It's just where we are, guys. So those are good numbers for the UFC White House event, but for Dana White getting out here and saying we're going to do Super Bowl numbers, you didn't do anywhere near that. Not even close. Not even like a fraction. An order of magnitude lower, if not more than that. I know Dana, like the press conference for this last event, did we're competing with the NFL and the NBA and all these entities. You're not. You're not at all. Like, you, my friend, like, you get 1.1 billion a year for 7 years, which is a great deal for the UFC. The NFL gets like 110 billion over 7 years. They're an order of magnitude. If they're 2 orders of magnitude bigger than you are. Like, no, you're not competing with them. You got a good deal for this. That Paramount just took a bath on this, guys. Like, we all know it. They are monetizing every square inch and every millisecond of that broadcast that they can, because they're not making $1 billion a year on the UFC. They're not making that in subscriptions, not even close. Do you have any idea how many subscriptions you'd have to sell? Like, I forget what Paramount Plus is. But like, let's just say it's $10. You mean to tell me you're going to get enough people to pay $10 a month to get you to $1.1 billion a year? Not on the UFC. They don't have that. They just don't. So they sell ad space, and they're also paying for the Ultimate Fighter. Nobody's watching that. Oh, golly. Like, I don't know what Paramount was doing, man. I mean, everybody's overpaying for everything at the moment, but they're losing money on this deal. I almost guarantee you the UFC's next rights deal in 7 years, 2034. Sorry, not 2034. 32. So 2032, unless something real drastic happens, the UFC isn't getting $1 billion a year. Like, they don't generate it for their partners. I mean, who else are they going to go to as a singular entity? I don't know any single entity in the next 7 years that's going to look at what Paramount is getting out of this financially and go, let me give you a better offer. I don't know. But that's what that is. So that's where we are. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on too much of a tangent there. All right, last thing I have written down here, then we'll potentially do plugs. The UFC dropped several fight announcements over the last week. They announced UFC 330. That will be, let me double check the when. UFC 330 is August 15th. They're in Philly. We do know the main event. Islam Makhachev, welterweight champion, defending against Ian Machado Gary. That's the right fight to make. No problems there. Favor Islam pretty. It's interesting. Gary's takedown defense, if you clinch with him, is actually quite good. Gary's takedown defense, if you go for his legs, not quite as much. That said, Gary is, big, rangy, exceptional defense. Very hard to consistently win rounds against. I like Makhachev there, but I'm not going to pretend Gary is unable to win that fight. And co-main event for the strawweight title, Mackenzie Dern is defending against Jillian Robertson. That's probably the right fight there. Also, thus far on that card, Edson Barboza versus Esteban Ribovic. That will be fun. Erin Blanchfield versus Jasmine Jasdavicius. That exists. Vicente Luque and Trishan Gore. I don't want Vicente Luque to continue fighting. Dustin Stoltzfus and Mansour Abdul Malik. And then Mektabek Oralby and Jeremiah Wells. So it's looking okay. Good man. Like the top two fights are very, very relevant. They're title fights. And they're the right fights for both of those divisions. Also announced, and we got a couple of these. I think they really fleshed out the Abu Dhabi card that's headlined by Magomed Ankalaev and Khalil Roundtree Jr. Also on that card, Umar Nurmagomedov and David Martinez. That's a big step for Martinez. Rivzan Kuniev and Tyrell Fortune for some reason. Walter Walker. I've been over this a little bit before. That's an okay card. I mean, more on that when we get closer. But we also did get confirmation for the upcoming fight night in Oklahoma City. This is Fight Night 281. Main event, former middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis fighting former welterweight champion Kamaru Usman. This fight will be at middleweight. This fight's been rumored for a long time. We were just waiting for it to be confirmed. DDP's first fight back since the loss to Khamzat. Usman... what's he done recently? He beat Joaquin Buckley in a return to welterweight. I don't know how middleweight's going to go for him. That said, DDP really needs to have his wrestling defense on point. Also, Usman doesn't wrestle like Khamzat does, so curious. We'll see how that goes. Not a terrible fight. If DDP does win, he will have beaten two of the three other African kings. Then he just has to beat Francis Ngannou. And I think if he does that, he gets an N-word pass, right? If you're, from Africa, if you're white African, and you beat Izzy, Usman, and Francis, I think you do get the pass. Also on that card, Jared Cannonier and Christian Leroy Duncan. Okay. Kevin Holland and Jacoby Smith. Moderately interesting. What else is there that's worth paying attention to? Fatima Klein. Still curious to see if she'll actually make a run. Seok-Hyun Ko is back. He tends to be fun. I'm struggling to find Alden Correa. I thought was an okay flyweight prospect. So Alden Correa, Stuart Nickel. There's a lot of just look when the UFC takes its shows on the road, they tend to put forth a little effort. DDP and Kamaru Usman is, a fair is kind of what I wouldn't say kind of what passes for, but that's a solid road show main event. So I think those were the big ones. So we got fight announcements. Happy with most of those. So UFC 330 shaped up okay. Hopefully it holds together. DDP and Usman will be fine, I imagine. We'll have to see what happens. Okay. I am going to check the old social medias, see if anything crazy has happened. If not, I'm going to do plugs and get out of here. So this is your last chance to ask a question. Leave any other comments you'd like to in the live chat. I appreciate the heck out of any of you watching live. I appreciate the heck out of any of you watching after the fact and leaving comments and likes and all the good stuff. So thank you very much to everyone. Again, last chance. Otherwise, let's scroll the old social media, see if anything crazy has gone on. I want to talk about the gloves. No, I don't think I want to touch too much on that one. I mean, there's a thing because this came out of the Joe Rogan podcast where Whitman, said like the UFC's looking at you because he came out a while ago and said he had a glove design and material that was better than what the UFC was using, which isn't hard to imagine. And Dana White's counter to that most recently was, yeah, I told him we were interested. He said it'll cost you $100 million. Now, to be clear, that's not the UFC, that's not the license fee. Like the UFC wants to just buy the design, buy the whole thing wholesale and say this is ours now. Like $100 million isn't what Trevor Whitman thinks that is worth as like a business partnership. That's what he wants to charge. That's assuming Dana White's being honest, by the way, which you shouldn't do. Whatever number Trevor Whitman gave, like he's giving up the design, he's giving up the patent, he's giving up all of that. Getting inventors to part with their invention, you're going to overpay. That's just what it is. But there's been some the UFC really it is not hard to come up with a good glove redesign. There's a lot better ones out there than the ones the UFC are using. Heck, the Pride gloves were better. So I don't know. We'll see if anything develops there. I suppose that kind of counts as news. Let's see. Was there anything? Anything else here? I don't think I have any other major news. I am not seeing. I don't think I'm seeing anything crazy here. No, I think we're going to call it this. Okay. So that is going to wrap up this episode. What do I got this week? Monday, over on Damn You Hollywood, we will be reviewing Toy Story 5. They should have stopped at 3. I go into the archives over there. I yelled to high heaven about Toy Story 4, and I don't know about 5. We'll find out. I haven't seen it yet, so of course I will see it before I review it, but that will be over on Damn You Hollywood on the W2M network. This was going to be, I think it's me, Mark, Alexis, and Zach. So we will have a go. We will figure that out. We'll talk about it. It's probably going to make a boatload of money. It's already done the 300 million thing worldwide. So it's a trusted IP. Whatever like Pixar's lost cache's been, like Toy Story has retained its brand trust with the audience. So we'll review it. We'll figure it out. I think it's my only other podcast this week. Is this me? I don't think this is me. No, that's not me. Okay, so yeah, Toy Story, and then covering WWE SmackDown on Friday over at 411 Mania. That will be the go-home show for Night of Champions, so tune in for that. We'll have a good time. And then Saturday, early Saturday, UFC in Azerbaijan. Stop by, say hello. We will be back here next Sunday/Monday. At around this same time, we will review the Azerbaijan card and we will preview UFC 329, McGregor versus Holloway 2. What else is on that card? BSD and Patty, Sandhagen and Batista, Royval and Kavanaugh, Whitaker and Krylov, Gable Stevenson's UFC debut, Garbrandt and Yanez, King Green, Terrence McKinney. That'll be fun for as long as it lasts. UFC 329 is a very strong card on paper. We'll give it the full preview treatment next week, so I hope to see you all then. All right. That's going to do it for me, everybody. Thank you. Live after the fact, far into the future. Or if you figure out a way to send this into the past, I hope somebody's making a killing betting. Either way, that's going to do it for this week. Thank you all again. I appreciate you and everything you do for the show, whether it's, like, comment, subscribe, sharing, or just listening. It all matters. So thank you very much. I will see you next week. Until then, thanks. Stay safe out there as always. Continue to be well, be safe, and behave. Till next time.